to Deep Sleep Stories. Thank you to everyone who's been listening. If these stories help you relax or fall asleep, a short review, comment, or sharing the podcast with someone who might benefit is a simple and meaningful way to support the show so that we may continue to offer it for free. Now, take a slow, gentle breath and let's begin tonight's story.
Welcome to Deep Sleep Stories, a quiet little corner of the night where you are invited to rest, to soften, and to drift away. As a gentle winter evening carries you into a dream, tonight you will wander through a giant library on a snowy night, finding the warmest nook and the coziest nap as the world outside turns to silver and deep blue. For now, let yourself arrive. Notice the shape of your body wherever you are resting. Let your shoulders loosen, sliding away from your ears. Unclench your jaw and let your tongue rest softly behind your teeth. If you like, you can let your eyes close, as if heavy curtains are being drawn over a window, shutting out the brightness of the day. Breathe in slowly through your nose and imagine you are inhaling the faint scent of old paper and polished wood. Hold for just a moment and then breathe out gently as if you are blowing dust from the cover of a long forgotten book. With every breath in, imagine warmth and softness flowing in. With every breath out, imagine anything heavy, anything sharp or tight, simply loosening and falling away. The night outside is cold, but you are safe here. Picture in your mind the first soft flakes of snow drifting down past tall stone windows. They move slowly, lazily, as if time itself is yawning and stretching. Somewhere in the distance, a clock chimes. The sound is low, velvety, and it seems to echo through high ceilings and along endless corridors lined with books. Let your breathing find its own slow rhythm. Let your hands rest, your feet relax, your thoughts grow quieter, like visitors leaving a reading room one by one. There is nothing you need to remember and nothing you need to do. The story will carry you. All you have to do is listen, breathe, and gently let go. In the heart of a snow-covered city, there stood an ancient library so vast that its roof seemed to brush the clouds and its halls wound like rivers of ink through the quiet stone. Its tall windows were framed in frost, delicate crystals climbing the glass in fern-like patterns. Inside, lamplight pooled in golden circles, soft and steady, casting shadows that swayed like sleepy branches in a winter wind. On this particular evening, snow was falling in thick, dreamy silence. The city outside had grown muffled and distant, its sounds wrapped in layers of white. Inside the library, the air was warm and touched with the faint aroma of paper, leather, beeswax polish, and a hint of cinnamon from a forgotten mug of spiced tea on a side table. The great front doors had already been locked for the night, yet the library was not empty. In a quiet corner near the central hall, a solitary visitor wandered between the shelves. They wore a woolen scarf, still dusted with snowflakes, and a coat that held the last whisper of cold from the winter air. As they walked, the chill melted away, replaced by a deep, enveloping comfort, as though the very library were drawing them in. room by room, breath by breath. The visitor's footsteps were softened by thick carpets patterned in faded blues and browns. Overhead, wooden beams arched like the ribs of a great sleeping creature. Books whispered quietly as they settled on their shelves, and the old building sighed now and then, content and at peace, as if the weight of centuries of stories had made it gently drowsy. The visitor did not come with a particular book in mind. They had come for quiet, for warmth, for the feeling of being wrapped in a place that asked nothing and offered everything. Their eyes drifted over titles stamped in gold and silver, over spines cracked with love and time, over neat rows of volumes waiting patiently in the hush. Deep in the central hall, there was a grand reading room lit by tall floor lamps and a chandelier that glowed like a small, friendly constellation. The tables were long and sturdy, the chairs cushioned and comfortable. Here and there, stacks of books formed little islands of thought and imagination. Tonight, though, the room was nearly empty, save for a lamp left on and a few chairs pulled slightly askew, as if the readers had just stepped away and might return at any moment. The visitor paused, listening. The silence of the library was not empty. It was full of small, gentle sounds, the distant murmur of a heating vent, the faint creak of old wood, the soft rustle of pages turned somewhere far down another aisle. All these sounds blended into a kind of quiet music, steady and soothing. On a side wall of the reading room, half hidden by a tall shelf of atlases, there was a narrow staircase that spiraled upward. The visitor turned toward it, drawn by a subtle curiosity, the kind that did not hurry or demand, but merely suggested with a soft, persistent tug. He placed a hand on the smooth wooden rail and began to climb. The steps rose slowly, circling past the tall windows. From here, the visitor could see the snow outside more clearly. It drifted past the glass like soft white feathers, catching and releasing the glow of street lamps below. Each step carried them higher into quieter air, further from the world outside, deeper into the gentle labyrinth of the library. At the top of the staircase, they emerged into a hidden gallery. It was long and narrow, with low sloping ceilings and shelves filled not just with books, but with small treasures, brass telescopes, porcelain figurines, framed botanical prints of winter plants and star charts sprinkled with careful ink. The light here was dimmer, softer, as if it were already partway to dreaming. Along the gallery wall, under one of the tallest windows, stood a deep window seat layered with cushions and folded wool blankets. The fabric was soft with age, warmed by the air of the library, and arranged as if some thoughtful soul had prepared it, especially for anyone needing rest. Beside the seat, a little table held a reading lamp with a frosted glass shade and a small brass switch that gleamed quietly in the dimness. The visitor felt a gentle heaviness behind their eyes, a pleasant weight in their limbs. The day behind them had been long, full of bustling streets and bright lights, of conversations and decisions and the constant hum of things to be done. here, all of that seemed to thin and fade, like mist dissolving in sunshine. They slipped out of their coat, draped it over the back of a nearby chair, and sat down on the window seat. The cushions sighed softly under their weight. They leaned back, feeling the support of the wall behind them, the softness beneath them, and the faint warmth that seemed to seep from the very wood and stone. The snow beyond the glass flickered in the lamplight from the street, each flake drifting, turning, landing, and disappearing into the growing blanket below. On the table lay a single book, its cover a deep midnight blue, flecked with tiny silver stars. There was no title on the front, only a subtle pattern that resembled a night sky reflected in still water. The visitor reached for it, fingertips brushing the smooth cover. The book felt comfortably heavy, as though it held something more than just ink and paper. They opened it to the first page. Inside, the handwriting was neat and flowing in dark ink that had faded slightly with time. The first words described a winter unlike any other, a quiet season of listening and falling snow, of lanterns and warm hideaways and old, calm magic that lived in the spaces between words. As their eyes moved slowly over the lines, the world around them grew even softer, even quieter. Outside the window, snow continued to fall. Inside, the air hummed with stillness. The library seemed to listen with them, every shelf and stair and shadow, leaning gently in. Time stretched and slowed, like a cat curling into a warm circle by the fire. The visitor read on, but their reading soon became a gentle drifting, their mind wandering between the story on the page and the story they were living. Here, in this giant, sheltering library, wrapped in warmth, while winter wrapped the world outside, their eyelids grew heavier with each sentence, each pause, each breath. The book in their hands told of a person who had once become snowbound in a library high in the mountains, far from any town. In that story, the library itself had kept them company, its books speaking in soft whispers, its lamps flickering kindly, its floors and stairways offering hidden nooks and corners of deep, restful quiet. The person in the story had walked the shelves until they found a secret alcove filled with cushions and blankets, where they had taken the most peaceful nap of their life. As the visitor read about that quiet mountain library, the lines between stories began to blur. The snowbound shelves, the secret alcove, the soft weight of blankets felt so very similar to the place where they now sat. The air around them seemed to turn softer at the edges, like paper worn smooth by gentle fingers. After a while, the words on the page began to float, no longer holding together in sharp lines. The book grew heavier in their hands, their grip loosening. The visitor's breathing slowed, matching the rhythm of the falling snow. Their head nodded once, twice, like a lantern swaying on a quiet breeze. Gently, the book slid from their fingers and came to rest, still open on their lap. The lamp beside the window seat cast a halo of pale light over the pages, while the corners of the gallery sank into welcoming shadow. The visitor shifted, tucking their legs up a little, leaning their shoulder more fully into the cushions. One hand nestled against the warm folds of the blanket, the other resting lightly on the closed edge of the book. Down below in the grand reading room, the last of the lamps dimmed themselves gradually, as if deciding it was time for every story to rest. The clock in the distant hall chimed again, its low notes echoing softly, like a lullaby for wood and stone and paper. The sound drifted upward to the gallery, gentle and slow, easing through the air like ripples on a quiet pond. In this high hidden corner of the library, the visitor slipped deeper into drowsiness. Their thoughts thinned, stretching out into long, slow shapes. They no longer wondered about the time or the weather or the day that had passed. The only things that remained were the warmth under their body, the soft cushion against their cheek, and the delicate pattern of snow on the other side of the glass. The library watched over them kindly. The shelves around the gallery seemed to lean in just a little, a circle of quiet guardians. The books stood still and patient, their stories content to rest for the night. The little telescope on the shelf above the window seat glinted faintly like a tiny star, and the framed star chart on the wall looked almost as if it were slowly turning, aligning itself with the snowy sky outside. The longer the visitor rested, the more the library's quiet presence wrapped around them. It was as if the building itself exhaled warmth and reassurance, the way a sleeping animal breathes warmly into the cold air of a winter den. Every soft creak of timber and faint sigh of the vents formed part of a low, continuous murmur, telling the same story again and again, that it was all right to rest, that it was safe to let go. In their drifting half-dreams, the visitor imagined walking through the library once more, but this time the path was different. They moved slowly between shelves that seemed taller and more distant, their upper levels disappearing into a velvety dimness overhead. Here and there, a small floating lantern bobbed gently in the air, casting a pool of gentle light on a particular book, a particular title, as if inviting closer attention. They did not feel the need to stop or choose, only to keep walking. Each step sounded like the turning of a page. The air was filled with a faint, shimmering whisper, as though countless voices were speaking just at the edge of hearing, telling tales of snowflakes and still lakes, of quiet forests and silent nights under wide, watchful skies. When they looked toward the tall windows in this dreamlike walk, they no longer saw the city outside. Instead, beyond the glass lay a winter landscape, untouched by streets or lights. Great trees stood in elegant silhouettes against a sky that seemed full of falling stars. The snow was deep and soft, unmarked by any footprints, and above it, the sky rippled with long, slow curtains of pale light. The visitor did not feel cold when they gazed at this wintry scene. Wrapped in the warmth of the library's embrace, they only felt a deep, calm wonder, the kind that asks nothing and expects nothing, but simply exists, quiet and bright, like a candle in a dark room. Back in the waking world, though the visitor slept. The snow outside thickened into a soft, steady curtain. The city's lights blurred behind it, turning the world beyond the windows into a gentle, glowing haze. Inside, the temperature remained perfectly warm, the air neither too dry nor too heavy, the quiet never quite absolute, always sprinkled with those small, comforting sounds of a living building at rest. The visitor's breathing had become slow and deep. With each inhale, their chest rose gently, and with each exhale, their body relaxed a little more, melting into the cushions. Their face was peaceful, features smoothed by sleep. If anyone had passed by the gallery, they might have paused, smiling at the simple, perfect comfort of this winter nap in the sheltering arms of the library. But no one passed. The night was theirs alone. Hours seemed to stretch like silk, long and unbroken. Time moved softly around the library, brushing past shelves and staircases, running cool fingers along railings and doorways. Dust motes turned and drifted in the lamplight above the window seat, slowly settling again like tiny snowflakes of the indoor air. Every now and then, a faint breeze moved through the upper gallery, born of the old building's careful circulation. It stirred the edge of a nearby curtain and lifted a strand of the visitor's hair, but the breeze was warm, like a friendly sigh, carrying the subtle scent of paper, leather, and the last trace of that cinnamon tea. Deep in their sleep, the visitor might have dreamed of curling up within a book itself, becoming a character resting between the lines, sheltered by letters and margins, instead of blankets and stone. Or perhaps they dreamed of snowflakes that were not cold at all, but soft and glowing, each carrying a tiny story that dissolved into the skin like a blessing of rest. As the night wore on, the library and the sleeping visitor became part of the same slow rhythm. The great building inhaled and exhaled with faint creaks and quiet hums. The visitor inhaled and exhaled with the steady tide of their breath. Outside, the snow fell and fell and fell, unhurried, patient, and endlessly gentle. Eventually, even the lamps seemed to dim themselves a fraction more, as if to respect the depth of this quiet. The halo of light around the window seat softened, its edges blurring into the shadows. The book on the visitor's lap lay open to a page that spoke of rest, of a mountain library where sleep was considered a sacred sort of reading, a way of turning inward instead of turning pages. The visitor shifted once more, a tiny motion pulling the blanket more fully around themselves. Their body knew without thinking that there was nothing to fear here. No need to wake suddenly, no need to listen for alarms or footsteps or calls. The only sounds were the sounds of peace, the hush of snow, the murmur of vents, the occasional contented creak of wood, like an old friend settling into a comfortable chair. Little by little, the dreams grew simpler, slower. The long corridors of the dream library shortened into a single warm hallway. The windows of winter landscapes faded into soft, glowing shapes. Even the floating lanterns dimmed, their light becoming a pale, steady glow, like distant stars seen through half-closed eyes. And then, at last, the dream became something like pure feeling, warmth, safety, softness, rest. No images, no words, just the sense of floating in a gentle, endless quiet. The library held the visitor there, in that quiet, as carefully as a hand holds a small, precious object. Outside, the snow eventually lightened, the clouds passing and thinning. The sky above the city turned clear and deep, scattered with stars that shone down on the roof of the library, on its frosted windows, on the sleeping figure in the high gallery. There would be morning eventually. There would be the soft blue of early light seeping into the edges of the windows. There would be the faint sounds of the city gradually returning, tires on snow, footsteps on cleared paths, doors opening and closing. There would be the gentle click of the library's locks turning, the quiet greeting of the first librarian who arrived, the new day of reading and wandering and quiet study. But all of that was far ahead, and it did not hurry. Night still lay over the city like a thick, comforting blanket. In the hidden gallery, beneath the tall window, the visitor slept on deeply and peacefully, untroubled by clocks or calendars or obligations. There was only the present moment stretching wide and soft, only the steady rise and fall of a chest, only the endless patience of a library that had seen countless nights, countless winters, countless visitors who came seeking something and found, among other things, the permission to rest. Now the story itself begins to slow like footsteps easing to a stop. The sentences grow quieter, more spacious, leaving more room for silence between them. The giant library remains warm and patient, full of stories that do not mind being left unread while someone naps in their presence. The snow outside continues to fall in your imagination, light and slow. The tall windows remain frosted and still. The cushions on the window seat cradle the sleeping visitor, and will continue to do so for as long as needed. Nothing is pressing, nothing is urgent. Everything can wait. The library's quiet murmur becomes a hush. The last rustle of pages, the last distant creak, fade into the softest background. What remains is the feeling of being sheltered, completely and tenderly, within walls that want nothing from you except your ease. You may imagine yourself now in that window seat, wrapped in blankets with a heavy book resting gently on your lap. You can feel the reassuring weight of it, the warmth of the cushions, the softness of the lamplight. Your breathing is slow and deep. Your body is comfortable and supported. Your mind is free to drift like snowflakes on a quiet night. There is nowhere else you have to be, no other story you have to follow. The library holds you. The night holds the library. Everything is layered and safe and still. As the last traces of wakefulness soften around the edges, you can let the image of the library grow dimmer if you wish. until it is only a sense of warmth and quiet at the back of your mind. Or you can keep the picture gently glowing as you drift, knowing that it will be here whenever you want to return. For now, you simply rest, breathing in slow and easy, breathing out slower still, sinking into softness, into stillness, into sleep. Good night, dear traveler. May your dreams be gentle and your rest deep. Sleep well.